Hello, my name is Miranda Meelan. My talk is titled Explaining the Distribution of Invasive Plants Along Roadsides, the case study of Dittrichia graveolens. Today I will be presenting research on behalf of Team Dittrichia, which is comprised of Ingrid Parker, Nikki Lustenhauer, and myself, in addition to an amazing group of undergrads that we've had the pleasure of working with over the past few years. Invasive plants can be a significant threat to wild ecosystems and native biodiversity, but they often establish their first foothold along transportation corridors. Understanding the nature of this association with roadsides is crucial for effective management. I study Dittrichia graveolens, and I'm interested in this relationship between invasion and roadsides. Dittrichia graveolens, or stinkwort, is an annual in the Asteraceae family. It is native to the Mediterranean basin in Europe, and in its native range, it grows along roadsides, construction sites, agricultural fields, and other disturbed environments. Dittrichia has invaded Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and North and South America. On this map, Dittrichia's native range is in green, and the orange is the expanded range. Outside of Europe, Dittrichia is classified as invasive. In California, Dittrichia was first identified in Santa Clara County in 1984. As of 2020, it was found in 79% of California counties. And this map shows the progression of Dittrichia through time in California. So Dittrichia is strongly associated with roads and heavily disturbed habitats, and we see populations along road verges, the edges of construction sites, and quarries. A classic question in ecology is whether distributions reflect an affinity for certain environmental conditions, or rather reflect competitive exclusion from higher quality habitats. One important question is, why is this the case? And why is it important to know the answer? There are two general types of explanations. On the one hand, it may be that abiotic conditions of roadsides are ideal for Dittrichia germination and growth. On the other hand, it may be that Dittrichia can thrive in the abiotic conditions of more intact habitats, like grasslands and rangelands, but it is excluded from these areas by competition from resident plants. Understanding which of these two models fits Dittrichia is essential for designing management. If Dittrichia really only thrives in gravelly, high mineral soils of roadsides, construction zones, gravel quarries, and some riparian areas, then the ecological risks are reduced and we're able to focus on management of just those gravelly areas. However, if it is competition that inhibits Dittrichia from spreading into grasslands, then effective management should focus on supporting a robust resident plant community and minimizing any disturbance that reduces competition. This leads to other important questions like, how are the competitors suppressing growth? And then finally, we do have a null hypothesis. That is, since roadsides are vectors, if Dittrichia is a good competitor, then it's just a matter of time before it's going to spread freely into these sites. If this is the case, then we just need to be prepared for this outcome. In California, we do see Dittrichia spreading away from roads and into grasslands and other wildlands. This pattern of spread, combined with the level of risk assessed by the USDA, California Department of Food and Agriculture, and the California Invasive Plant Council, makes this an urgent question for management. So first, let's evaluate the possibility that Dittrichia really likes these roadside soil conditions. We did two experiments, first looking at seed germination and then at plant growth. We used field topsoil and compared it to engineered fill soil, which is a mix designed for use in roadbed and other construction. We didn't find any evidence that Dittrichia germinated better in the engineered fill. We also grew Dittrichia in the greenhouse experiment, and that showed the opposite of what you would predict if you are rooting for the hypothesis that it mostly likes roadside conditions. In fact, it grew much better in the field soil. So, at least for soil, which in our experiments included the microbial communities associated with both types of soil, as well as the abiotic conditions, we did not find evidence that Dittrichia's association with roadsides is caused by a preference for these abiotic conditions. What about the evidence that plant competition away from roadsides is a barrier for Dittrichia? Well, first, we asked ourselves, how good of a competitor is Dittrichia? We wondered how it would compare to common grass invaders like Bromus hordeaceus and Festuca perennis. So we did a greenhouse experiment to find out. We grew Dittrichia alone and with both Bromus hordeaceus and Festuca perennis. And we found that its growth was strongly reduced with competition. Note that the y-axis is in log scale. When we grew the same treatments in engineered fill, as expected, no one did well in the poor soil conditions. So whereas in the field soil, competition has a huge effect on Dittrichia growth, in the engineered fill, competition has less of an effect. This is consistent with the idea that Dittrichia is restricted to roadsides as an escape from competition. So now we want to understand whether these conclusions hold up in the field. And we want to understand more about the mechanisms of competition. Is it below ground competition for water and nutrients, or above ground competition for light? Is light competition exacerbated by the thatch from previous generations of plants? We did a field experiment at Blue Oak Ranch Reserve where we manipulated competition. We had 4 treatments, a grassland control, a thatch removal where we raked away the thatch from the previous year before planting Dittrichia, above ground removal where we raked and then trimmed the competition around Dittrichia, and finally above and below ground removal where we hoed the plots prior to planting and then weeded the competition around Dittrichia throughout the growing season. Interestingly, Dittrichia did not benefit when we just raked away thatch, or when we clipped back above ground biomass of competitors. But in plots where we removed all the competitors, both above and below ground, we see a huge difference in size, and this is on a log scale. Clearly, the important competition is happening below ground. In a second year of experiments, we further explored the mechanisms of competition above and below ground. I won't go into the details here about the treatments, but the important part to understand is that we used a combination of trenching and weed cloth to block competition of roots for half of the treatments, and the other half did not have weed cloth. Here you can see the increased survival of plants that were protected from below ground competition using weed cloth. The open triangles show the plants with weed cloth, and you can see that they had higher survival compared to no weed cloth. Now I'm showing the other treatments in this experiment. Plants that were exposed to competition, meaning no weed cloth, showed increased survival with water addition, and the highest survival was for plants that received both water addition and NPK fertilizer. This second round of experiments confirms that below ground competition was important and that both water and nutrients probably play a role in mediating the effects of competition on Dittrichia. To summarize, based on our research, we believe Dittrichia's association with roads has more to do with its relatively poor competitive ability rather than a preference for roadside conditions. And below ground competition is an important driver of this biotic pattern. Management strategies should prioritize reducing bare and disturbed areas and enhancing competition in regions vulnerable to Dittrichia invasion. This study enhances our understanding of roadside invasion dynamics and provides actionable insights for ecosystem conservation and invasive species management. I'd like to thank our collaborators, support teams, and funders, especially the USDA NIFA program. Thank you so much.